Hey everybody, it's me again. Just wanted to touch base because we are, hard to believe, but we are in our final week of class, which is crazy. And your final papers, as a reminder, are due this coming Thursday, which is July 2nd, and they're due by noon. You're going to upload them under the assignments link, and you can also email them to me as a Word attachment at lfinelli11@gmail.com. I wanted to just go over a couple of things for your final papers just so you're fully prepped and prepared and can write wonderful, wonderful crowning achievement papers. Okay, so firstly, you'll see under the resources tab that there is a link called paper guidelines. It's really important to just review that before starting your paper so that you know sort of exactly what this paper requires of you and exactly what I'm expecting of these papers from you. I have it printed out here. So I will go over a couple of things. Before I do that, though, I should mention that the prompts are under the assignments link. I've given you a couple of prompts. You're going to choose one of them and answer that prompt, obviously, to the best of your ability. If you want to write on a topic that I'm not covering, like I said before, you can absolutely do that, but you have to get in touch with me like now, to just go over your ideas, let me know what your thesis is, and what text specifically you want to touch on and put in conversation with one another. I'm really happy for you to do. You'll write a better paper if you're writing on subject matter and text that interest you. So I'm all for it, but you have to just run it by me so that I can make sure that you're on the right track, okay, and that you're working with enough material. 5 to 7 pages, not a lot of space. So the first thing that I'm asking you to do is to, since this is a comparative literature class, take two and no more than three of the texts that we've read in the class and put them in conversation with one another in response to one of the prompts that I've given you. I don't want you to sort of touch sort of generally on a bunch of different texts. This is less like, look, I read everything, and more, I read everything. These are the two texts or three texts that I think would be really interesting to talk about in relation to this particular theme. So I am going to write a more focused essay just using those particular texts. It'll help you kind of streamline your ideas and your thoughts and write a more detailed paper as opposed to a more sort of superficial paper, not in terms of, oh my God, but in terms of not detailed enough, not hearty enough analytically. Okay, so again, your paper should be a close analysis of two, no more than three works that we've read thus far, and it has to be different authors. So for example, the fairy tales, we read a bunch of different fairy tales by Perrault or the Grimm brothers. You could choose one fairy tale from Perrault, and you can choose one from Carter, for example, but they do have to be different authors. So it can be the same genre, but different authors. Same thing with, like the Demeter and Persephone myth, you could put in conversation with perhaps one of Dove's poems, one or two of Dove's poems, like that's legitimate, but different authors. Okay. You should have a clear thesis. Duh. The thesis is your anchor for your paper. It really is a promise to the reader. It tells the reader, it should tell the reader specifically what you intend to argue in your paper. And that's a key point. There should be some kind of argument at stake. The way to know if there's an argument at stake is to think about it and try to figure out if someone could argue it a different way. Whatever you're posing, try to figure out if someone could take a different stance on it. And if they can, then you know that you have an actual argument at stake in your paper. That's really important. There's another document under the resources tab called the thesis test, and it lists like a bunch of questions that you can use for yourself to reflect on, how particular and how argumentative really your thesis is. So go through that, ask yourself some of those questions, just so that you can really have a nice focused thesis. You are welcome to submit to me an introduction, including your thesis statement, before the paper is due, and I'll review it and give you some notes. I'm happy to do that. Not the night before, but like now would be a great time to sort of flush out an introduction, put together some kind of a thesis statement, and send it to me so that I can give you some feedback. Not the whole paper, but just that introduction, because the introduction and the thesis statement, to me, like I said, they're really sort of the anchor for your entire paper. Okay. Your paper should also be organized logically and transition smoothly. Don't repeat different ideas. Try to use your body paragraphs to introduce one new idea, one new aspect of your argument. So there should be some sort of topic sentence, and then the rest of that body paragraph should be you bringing in, examples and excerpts from the text to help you build your argument, to sort of don't tell me what your argument is. Show me through the text. Show me how these texts are speaking to your argument specifically. Okay. Cite specific examples, and then just don't be like, I think this, and plop in, an excerpt and move on. State, your topic sentence, which is basically sort of an element of your argument. Provide me with some kind of clear excerpt from the text, and then explain it a little bit. Put it into context for me a little bit. Obviously, your paper is going to include a title. This is interesting that many people don't do that, but your paper should have a title. It should have a heading in the upper left-hand corner with your name and the date and the course. These are just sort of basic things. Obviously, you should be editing your paper. Something that I find to be really helpful when it comes to editing is to print your paper out and read it out loud. Yes, read your paper out loud. Go in front of your mirror, slow down, pay attention to the words that are actually on the page. Our brains are incredibly smart, and they will autocorrect. It autocorrects for us. If we are missing an N, if we're missing a the, whatever, if we misspelled something, if we've misused a comma, your brain it just knows how to do that. So when you slow down and you actually pay attention to what is written on the page, you will find, when you've missed a word, when you've missed a punctuation, when you have a run-on sentence, when you need to start a new paragraph. All of these things, are really, really important and really sort of contribute to a positive reading of your paper. Proofreading lets me know that you care. It lets me know that you're proud of whatever you're submitting and that you've taken time to make sure that it's the best that it can be. So before submitting it to me, I beseech you to print your papers out, read them to your dog, read them to your roommate, read them to your parents, read them to the guy on the subway next to you, read them to yourselves. So just read them out loud and do a good proofreading. Okay. And it should just be in Times New Roman, 12-point font. Let's not get cray-cray. 1-inch margins, you know the drill. Okay, your paper should avoid summary. No-nos, big no-nos. I read the book, so, a one-sentence plot summary of a text, totally okay, and actually preferable. It's good to sort of give a kind of brief 1 to 2 sentence rundown of what the text, was about, what the story was about, what the myth was about. That's fine, but 1 to 2 sentences and cut yourself off. The rest should really be analysis. It should be your own original thoughts, processing the work, and less trying to, like I said, fill space by just regurgitating what we read. I know what we read too, so just avoid that. Redundancy. Make 1 new point per paragraph. Okay, try not to, recycle the same material because it becomes obvious. Okay. And lack of proper citation. If you have questions about how to cite or when to cite, actually, more importantly, there's a link on your syllabus, which is an MLA guide for citations. So that should help you tremendously. We have a lot of different types of texts. We have poems, we have a novel, we have, short stories. And, it's good to know, how to precisely cite these things properly. If you have questions about that, then feel free to email me anytime, and I'll be happy to give you a quick little rundown of that. But again, there is a link that will provide a good guide for you. And also, if you're wondering when to cite, or I always say err on the side of being very conservative. If you're not sure whether you should cite something, meaning if it's not word for word, but you've read this idea somewhere, you've read it in the introductory materials in the anthology, or you've read it, maybe in the lecture notes, cite, okay? When in doubt, cite. Okay, so that's a good sort of guide for the paper guidelines. Like I said, the thesis test questions are also under resources. That should help you hone in a good thesis statement. I also have a sort of paper writing 101, not to imply that you don't know how to write papers, but if you aren't feeling that confident right now, or if this isn't the type of class that you've taken that frequently, or you're not quite sure, it's a good, more thorough rundown of exactly how to structure these types of papers, these types of sort of analytical literary papers. So please feel free to review that as well. Again, if you have any questions, please contact me now. Don't wait until the day or two before when you're tearing your hair out and exhausted. No bueno. Just talk to me now. Ask your questions, get it sorted out so that you give yourself enough time to, write these papers and do a good job. Okay. If you have any questions in the meantime, I'm here. Okay. Good luck. Bye.